Idaho, I hope you're feeling better today. No, things are kind of rough and it sucks being away from you. But don't worry, we'll be there soon. Niamoy, I hope you've been enjoying this. And I hope your mommy's been enjoying it too. Maybe it brings back some memories from when she was little. So, anyways, I figured we'd continue on with the Tales of King Arthur by James Riordan. So, we finished the tale of the 3 nights he went on adventures. And now we are on Balin and Balan. Ba- is one of the pictures. Looks like it's supposed to be Balin with his sword. Right. It happened one time when King Arthur was at Camelot that a lady arrived with a message from the mistress of the Isle of Avalon. As she was delivering the missive, her fur cloak fell open, revealing a heavy sword and scabbard at her side. The king was much amazed. "My lady, what why do you wear that sword?" he asked. "It does not become you." "It is my fate to wear this heavy sword," she answered sadly, "until a knight is found to draw it from its scabbard. And he must be a man pure in word and deed, without a single stain upon his honor. I have attended the court of your enemy, King Ryans of North Wales, for I heard that he had many good knights, and yet none could remove the sword. I am not surprised that there are no worthy knights at King Ryan's court," said Arthur. "Come, my good knights," he said, turning to his followers. "Who is man enough among you to relieve this lady of her sword?" All the knights of the Round Table lined up to try their hand. They pulled and tugged, but all to no avail. "Sir, you need not pull so hard," the maiden said. "In the right man's hands the sword will come out at a touch. Alas, I was sure that in this court I could find the purest knights in all of Christendom." "By my faith," said Arthur, "here are knights as worthy as any in the world, but sadly it does not seem to be their fate to aid you. I am sorry." Now, there was a poor knight at court whose name was Balin. Since he was humbly dressed, he hung back until the lady was about to take her leave. Then he stepped forward shyly to address her. "Dear lady," he said, "I pray you, may I try to unsheath the sword?" The lady looked up and down, and saw that though he was a handsome man, his clothing was ragged. She thought it unlikely that he could be more noble and pure than all other present. So she shook her head. "Sir, I do not wish to be put to further trouble, for I do not see how you could succeed where others worthier have failed." "Ah, dear lady," said Balin, "worthiness, like noble deeds, is not to be judged by a person's outer looks. True nobility lies within." "That is well said," she said. "Then by all means try to withdraw the sword." Balin took the sword by the hilt and gently drew it from its scabbard. Arthur and the other knights were greatly surprised at Balin's deeds, and many a knight present murmured against him, being envious. But the maiden said, "This is certainly a pure knight, the best that I have encountered. Many shall be the great deeds that he will accomplish. Now, gentle and courteous knights, I thank you to return my sword." But a strange power had come over Balin, and he was loath to part with the sword. "No," he said firmly, "I shall not give back the sword. It is mine, and I shall ride forth on my adventures carrying it." "You are unwise," the maiden said. The sword will bring you great misfortune. I grieve for your sake, since with it one day you will slay the one you hold most dear, and it will cause your own death. Be warned.
Love you, Daddy. Bye, Dad.
Alright, have fun at training.
Love you, Daddy.
Work hard, okay?
Hey, Dad.
Yeah.
When you're done taking a video, can you check on my nose?
Yes.
Thank you.
I shall take that chance, said Balin. You shall not have the sword back, by my oath. So the maiden departed in sorrow, and while Balin was preparing his horse and armor before getting out to search for deeds worthy of a knight, another visitor came to King Arthur's court. It was the Lady of the Lake. I have come for the gift you promised me when I gave you your sword Excalibur, she declared. I gave my word, said Arthur, and I shall keep it. Ask then for whatever you wish. Grant me the head of the knight who just took the sword from the scabbard, or give me the head of the maiden who brought it. It matters not which one. I must take revenge on the owner of the sword which killed my father and my brother. King Arthur was most perplexed. Pray, ask for something else, he said. It is not in my nature to take another's life unjustly. I want no other thing, she said grimly. Balin, meanwhile, had entered the hall and overheard the conversation. He was much enraged when he saw the lady, for he had been seeking her these 3 years past, believing her magic to be the cause of his own mother's death. So, you would have my head, would you? He shouted, striding towards her. Then you shall lose yours instead. And with his new sword, he cut the head off her shoulder right before King Arthur. Shame on you! Cried the king aghast. You have disgraced me and all my court. While here that lady was in my safe keeping, I owe her much, and will never forgive you this deed. Sire, I deeply regret causing you offense, Balin said, but this lady has caused the death through sorcery of many a good knight, and 3 years ago she caused my own mother to be burned. No matter what the cause, said Arthur angrily. You have dishonored your knighthood. Never has such an insult shamed my court before. Go now from Camelot in all haste. Balin left at once and rode out of Camelot, bearing his 2 swords. Don't put that there. Go put it up. Bearing his 2 swords, his own sword and the sword he had taken from the lady. He was incredibly sorry for having displeased King Arthur, for he loved him dearly, and he was now resolved to do some brave deed in recompense. After many days, he was overtaken on the road by his brother Balin, who had journeyed from their native Northumberland to seek him. The 2 brothers loved one another greatly. As they met, they embraced each other, weeping for joy. Balin related how he had heard of his brother's adventures with the strange sword, the death of the Lady of the Lake, and King Arthur's fury. Truly, said Balin, it wounds me deeply to offend King Arthur, for he is the noblest king who ever reigned. I am riding now to meet King Riordan and take him prisoner, or die in the attempt. Should I slay or capture him, King Arthur may forgive me. Then I shall ride with you, brother, said Balin, and risk my life with yours, as a brother ought. So they rode together into the hills and through thick forests until they had word that King Riordan was to pass along a certain path at midnight was a large party of armed men. Balin and his brother lay in ambush and made their attack at the party passed. So furious and sudden was their assault that they soon killed 40 of the king's men and caused the rest to flee. They would have killed King Riordan too, had he not begged for mercy. Brave knight, I am more used to you alive than dead, he said. Take me captive to your king. You are right, said Balin. We shall take you to King Arthur. Placing the wounded king upon a litter, the two brothers carried him to Camelot, and there delivered him to the servant with instructions to take him directly to King Arthur. Then off they went once more. Arthur was amazed to see his greatest foe be brought before him. King Riordan, welcome to my court, he said with a smile. What fate brings you here? Sir, sir, King Riordan explained, I and 60 of my best men were attacked by two bold knights. I do not know their names, but one of them wielded two mighty swords. I know them not, said Arthur, though I am much in their debt. At that point Merlin intervened. I shall tell you who they are. One is Balin, whom you banished from your court. The other is his brother Balan. Both are not long for this world, I fear. More the pity, said Arthur. I can now forgive Balin his offence to me, and now regret my haste in sending him away. In the meantime, having parted with his brother, Balin rode on in search of further adventure to the glory of King Arthur's court. Presently he overtook a knight with a doleful countenance. Sir, said Balin, tell me of your woes, for I perceive that you are deeply troubled. That I will not, said the doleful knight, since it would hurt me even more. Do you no good at all. Then, if you will not unburden yourself to me, persisted Balin, ride with me to King Arthur's court, and he will surely find a way to help you. The downcast knight thought it over and said, Will you protect me from all dangers on the way? By my faith I will. I pledge my life on it, Balin said. And so they rode towards Camelot together. But just as they were approaching the court, a spear from some invisible hand flew through the air and pierced the sad knight's breast. Alas, he sighed, even under your protection, the invisible knight Garlon had slain me. Pray, ride back to where you met me, and you will find a maiden waiting. She will lead you along the track that I was following, so that you may find Garlon and avenge my death. I shall avenge you. I vow to God, exclaimed Balin, as the poor knight breathed his last. Thereupon Balin returned by the same route, found the maiden in the forest, and rode with her until they came upon a great castle. Balin and the maid were welcomed by the castle servants, and that night had supper with the castle lord. In the course of the meal, Balin heard a scream of pain coming from a nearby chamber. What is that noise? He asked his host. It is my poor son, the lord replied. The story is a sad one. I jousted recently with a knight, who is the brother of King Palom. Twice I knocked him from his horse and made him yield, but he threatened to take revenge on me through the ones I hold most dear. Not long after, he struck down my son. The poor lad cannot now be healed, except with the blood of that foul knight. I do not know the cowardly knight's name. All I know is that he can make himself invisible. Ah, said Balin, I know his name. It is Garlon. He struck down a knight under my protection, and I too am seeking him. I would dearly like to punish him for the wrongs that he has caused. Perhaps I can help you, said the host. Within several days, King Palom is to hold a feast to which he has invited many knights with their ladies. For sure, the knight Galon will be there. Then I promise to deliver his blood to you to heal your son, said Balin. Next day, Balin set off for Palom's kingdom, accompanied by the castle lord and the maid, and after 15 days' journey they arrived at Palom's court, just in time for the great feast. The three entered the castle, but Balin's host was refused admission to the banquet since he had no lady with him. Balin and the maiden were led to the robing rooms and given fresh clothes. As soon as he was amongst the other guests, Balin asked the knight whether he could point out Galen in the hall. Balin began to ponder on his actions. Were he to kill Garlon in the hall, he would not escape with his life. Yet he might never have another chance to slay him.
They just are now leaving because your dad forgot the key on the the living room table. He couldn't find them. Love you.
Love you too. You have to love the chaos of our household. Dahi, I hope you're ready to come home and deal with having four sisters. Yeah, chaos. So, just at that moment, Garland caught Balin staring at him and came striding over.
Hurry.
Striking Balin's cheek with his glove, he snarled, "Insolent knight! Why do you stare at me so rudely? For shame, go about the business that you came here for." "Just as you say," Balin said. "I shall indeed do exactly what I came here for." With that, Balin whirled about, seized his two swords, and brought them crashing down so hard on Galen's head that it split open on his shoulders. Calling loudly to his companion in the outer room, Balin bade him quickly take enough blood from the dead Galen to kill his son. But now the entire hall was in great commotion. All the knights had risen from the table, and King Pellam himself was advancing on Balin, warning, "Knight, you shall not leave here alive for this foul deed. I shall kill you myself, since you've slain my brother." Balin only had time to retrieve one of his swords, and the one he grabbed was that ill-fated weapon he had taken from the maiden. Then, with the king and his knights in close pursuit, Balin ran from the chamber to chamber throughout the castle to escape their wrath. He turned to fight in each doorway, but the weight of numbers against him forced him to give way. So this is a picture of the knight Balin with the other knight after he was killed with a spear. They never actually mention who threw the spear, so I find that interesting. At last, he entered a chamber that was richly furnished and contained nothing but a table of pure gold standing on four silver pillars, and upon the table lay a strange and mysterious spear. As soon as Balin set eyes on the spear, he snatched it up and turned to face King Pellam, who had abruptly halted in the doorway, frozen with fear. Balin hurled the spear hard and true. That truly was a fateful blow. With a mighty roar, the great castle shook and trembled. The roof and walls came tumbling down, crashing many of the castle guests. Balin escaped because he threw himself beneath the golden table, though he could move neither hand nor foot for all the debris around him. For 3 days and nights he lay entombed. On the fourth day, the wise man Merlin came to his rescue, pulled him out, and told him to leave that realm as quickly as he could. That fateful stroke has destroyed all but one tower of this castle and laid waste 3 counties all around. For the spear you threw was that very spear with which the Roman soldier Longinus pierced the side of Jesus as he hung upon the cross, and now the wrath of God has descended upon your head. "And the Lord and the maid whom I brought here, what of them?" Balin inquired. "The maid lies dead beneath the castle ruins," Merlin replied, "but the Lord did escape with that blood to save his son. Now, farewell, for I must depart. Go quickly, and God be with you." So Balin rode off in haste through the devastated lands, and everywhere found the people dead or dying, and those that still had breath cursed as he passed. "Balin," they cried, "for that fateful stroke you will not escape God's vengeance." When he was clear of those wastelands, Balin entered a dense forest and rode on through it for 8 days until he came to a valley. As he made his way across the valley, he suddenly heard a horn blown, a hunter's blow when they sight their prey. Balin turned pale. "That blast is meant for me," he, he sighed. "I am the hunted, and even though I am not yet caught, I feel that death's chill breath blows upon my neck." Then he caught sight of a party of knights and ladies riding towards him. In spite of his fears, they welcomed him most eagerly, leading him to a castle where dancing and singing and all manners of merriments were in progress. As he joined the throng, the mistress of the castle addressed him. "Stranger, you must joust with the guardian of our island. He lets no man pass this way without doing battle." "It is a poor custom that a knight may not pass this way in peace," said Balin. "It is but a single test," the mistress said. "A man has but a single life to live, and can lose it instantly," Balin replied. "However, if that is your custom, I must respect it. My spirit is willing, though my body and my horse are both weary from the journey." As Balin whirled his horse about, a knight stepped forward and offered him his shield. "Sir," he said, "I perceive that your shield is broken. Take mine, it will serve you better." Greatly Balin took the shield, leaving his own behind. He rode down to the river where he and his horse were borne across the island on a barge. When he reached the far banks, a maiden stood there waiting. "Oh, Balin," she said, "why did you leave your shield behind? You are known by your coat of arms. Now you are in mortal danger. Go from here, quickly." This is a picture of Balin riding away on his horse, and looks like a crowd all kind of yelling at him or cursing him as he ambles past after causing so much destruction. "I regret ever coming to this place," he replied, "but it's too late now to turn back. I shall take what comes, be it life or death." Crossing himself, he mourned his horse and saw a knight in red riding towards him. Truth to tell, though neither was aware, brother now faced brother, for the red-clad knight, who was none other than Balin, who had been forced to become guardian of the island because he had slain its previous master. To earn his freedom, he had to wear the red armor and do battle with any knight who challenged him. And Balin, of course, did not recognize Balin, since he bore a different shield and was, like Balin, clad from head to foot in armor. The two men leveled their lances and rode hard at one another, striking at each other's shields so fiercely that both men and mounts came crashing to the ground. Balin suffered most, since he was already weary from his journey. Thus Balin was the first upon his feet, advancing sword drawn to finish off his foe. He brought down the weapon with all his force upon the prostrate figure, but the blow just split Balin's helmet asunder as he rolled aside. Pulling himself up, the wounded Balin, blood streaming down his face and blinding him, got in an answering thrust that well nigh felled his brother, cutting his shoulder to the bone. They fought together until their brethren breath failed. Then, heaving rested, they both came to each other once again. Panting hard and groaning with their pain, they cut and thrust until the muddy soil was running black and crimson. By this time, both had 7 gaping wounds that gushed forth blood, and any one of which would have caused the death of a normal man. All who witnessed the duel paled at the clamor and sight of such bloody carnage. The 2 knights' coats of mail were quite torn to shreds, and their bodies were now unprotected from the blow on every side. At long last, Balin, the elder brother, withdrew several paces and sank down exhausted. "What knight are you?" he gasped. "I have never before encountered anyone to match me." "My name is Balin," said the other. "I am brother to the brave knight Balin of King Arthur's court." Balin gasped and covered his face with both blood-stained hands. "How I wish I had not lived to see this day," he cried, and fainted from his wounds. With his last remaining strength, Balin crawled across the ground so that he might see his opponent's face, but it was so badly cut and bloody that he did not recognize it. Then Balin opened his eyes again and murmured weakly, "Oh, Balin, my dear brother, you have killed me, and I you. Now all the world will speak in sorrow of our fatal duel." Balin too wept when he recognized his brother, for he loved him above all others. "Because you bore another shield, I took you for some strange knight," he cried. "I too, Rue, have lived to see this day." As they were speaking, the mistress of the castle came up with 4 knights, and Balin murmured to her, "My brother and I are dying. I pray you, when we die, bury us in a single grave, so that we lie together upon the spot where we did battle." The lady was deeply moved by his brave words and all that she had witnessed. Through her tears, she promised to bury them together and build a tomb to keep their memory fresh. "I thank you," murmured Balin. "Henceforth, each wayfarer will learn how 2 loving brothers slew each other unknowing, and every good knight and lady will see our tomb and pray for our souls." And thus did Balin die, and all the knights and ladies wept for pity. Balin expired at midnight, and the 2 were buried together in one grave upon the very spot where they had fought. The lady of the castle had a tomb erected exactly as she had promised. The tomb reads, "Here lies Balin and his brother Balin. 2 bodies with 1 heart, and 2 hearts and 1 body, 2 souls extinguished by each other's hands." And here is an illustration of the 2 brothers dead with the maiden weeping over them. And thus ends the story of Balin and Balan. I hope you enjoyed it. We will pick up on some of the other stories later. So, I love you, Dahi. Your family loves you. Niamore, we really can't wait to meet you.
Thank you.
Say bye.
Bye.
Bye. Once again, for anyone who is interested, that is Tales of King Arthur's by James Riordan. We'll continue in our next video with more tales from the book. Till then, love you, Dahi, Niamore. Anyone who's watching this or stumbled across it, thank you and I hope you enjoyed.